Up next, we've got another live guest. We've got Adler coming in. It's Friday, which means that we're talking truck talk, and today we're talking trash. Alan, welcome to the show.
I mean, it was too easy to use that as the subject line today. Trash talking and all that. Of course, we have to use talk twice. But with those empty shelves, of course, there won't be as much to throw away. But we're not here to talk about what's in the trash. We're here to talk about what moves it. And this is interesting. I didn't realize it, but I'm going to take credit for it. Next week is the Waste Expo, if you will, in Las Vegas. This is they actually have their own trade show. The garbage truck industry does, and it's a multi-billion-dollar business. What we're talking about today in Truck Talk, however, is the electrification of garbage trucks. I ask a question right up front, and that is there a better application for electrification than a garbage truck? Which, it starts and stops all the time, right? And one of the hallmarks of electrification is regenerative braking. That is, when you touch the brakes, you hit the brakes, you're putting energy back into the battery. So that's one of the greatest things about garbage trucks. Also, you certainly get away from the diesel smell, which of course there's other smells associated with garbage you're not going to get rid of, but at least you can eliminate the diesel part of it. And then, so you get a little cleaner air. And then of course, something else we've talked about a lot is the silent running. You're not going to be able to be disturbed as much, or you won't be disturbed as much by garbage trucks as you might have been.
And I actually worked at the Public Works Department when I was a junior in college, and I did some research on kind of our gas usage and our utilization of our trucks, and it's crazy how poorly utilized these trucks are, and they get something like 6, 7, 8 miles to the gallon, don't they? So you're right, electrification does make a lot of sense here.
Yeah, this is one of these classic dilemmas for fleet managers, and purchasers, because the upfront acquisition cost is much higher. It might be 3 to 4 times as high to buy an electric battery powered garbage truck, but the payback, and I don't have those numbers in the newsletter, I didn't look them up, but the payback is obviously going to happen quicker, and your maintenance is going to be lower, and your uptime, therefore, is going to be higher, and so on and so forth. So, we talked to somebody from Mack Trucks in the newsletter about, why aren't we seeing more adoption, more quickly, and that sort of thing. And the real issue is the same chicken and the egg that we talk about with electrification all the time, and that's infrastructure. Although arguably for companies, like Republic Services, which is really big into electrifying trash trucks, they're going to have behind the fence, return to base kind of charging and that sort of thing. So, it's all going to come, but this is just an interesting area to sort of look at as a microcosm of the whole electrification thing.
Alan, you mentioned Republic there. They're obviously a private company. They run much of the garbage here in Chattanooga. What do you think, what are the dynamics between whether it being a private company or being a public service there in the city? Is there more demand from one side or the other with these trucks?
I don't know about that. I know Republic actually is a public company, Republic Services. They're traded on the New York Stock Exchange. The biggest thing about Republic, they were really involved a few months ago, as you may remember, with Nikola. They were going to purchase 2,500 electric garbage trucks from Nikola, and then both sides decided really together that this isn't going to work. It's going to cost too much to sort of remake the Nikola tray into a trash truck. So they walked away from that. But it's interesting that Republic is an investor in another startup called Romeo Technologies, the battery makers. So they're working with Romeo on trying to develop this. They actually have a board seat at Romeo. And, so I think, their interest in this is strong. I think they're trying to figure out exactly, how do we get there? There's no contract manufacturer, at least right now, who's going to be able to do that for us. But keep an eye on companies like Lion and even Proterra, although Proterra is mostly buses. They want to get into trucking. There could be some contract manufacturers out there that would take on a big project for like a Republic Services.
So, Alan, I want us to put our speculative glasses on, right? And let's take a look at this from the idea of public works that are government funded. Do you see any of this government funding or any of the public works services, like, Chattanooga Public Works obviously works off of a city, county, state budget. Do you see any incentives coming down the line as far as government incentives goes for maybe these publicly funded groups that maybe take on this adoption of electric trucks? So, and eventually maybe seeing that less cost passed on to the consumer in your sewer bills and your trash bills? Because I don't know about you, but I live in a house here in Chattanooga. My trash bill's pretty high just for the service.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happens to the individual, end user, in terms of garbage rates. Those are obviously set at the municipal level. I will tell you that there are incentives for these. I think $120,000 upfront voucher from the California HVIP program is the one that comes to mind. But Massachusetts, Utah, a couple places in Canada, Quebec, and British Columbia all offer incentives. Keep an eye, obviously, on what's happening with the infrastructure bill, which looks like it took maybe two step forwards yesterday in terms of funding for electric vehicles. This just makes so much sense as an application for electric vehicles that you've got to believe that people will grab onto it. And I think that there's a growing area. Now, it's interesting, Mac, which is sort of the focus of a lot of this right now, even though they've got a total of 2 garbage trucks out there that are electric, one in New York City and one down in Hickory, North Carolina. They're the sort of the focus in a way of what's happening, although others are doing them. Just to see when we start to see some real movement in terms of volume of these trucks. There is incentive money. I asked the question of Mac. I said, "How long are we going to need it?" And it's sort of like a while. You're going to need incentives to cover that acquisition cost, and then over time, as you get to critical mass, I think you'll be fine.
Well, how early are we in this adoption? I know on electric buses, at least city buses, there's many of them running around here in Chattanooga. Many cities have gone to mostly electric buses in their city. How far are we along the adoption curve here? Are we still in the very early innings?
I think so, Andrew. I think it's very early, and I think I would like to be a fly on the wall. I don't really want to go to Las Vegas this week, but I would like to be a fly on the wall in some of the conversations that are going to occur this week at the Waste Expo, because now you've got, as I mentioned, the HVIP money available now. They've funded the first $165 million of vouchers. And so there are going to be some people making moves. I think a lot of it does depend, though, and Kaylee, this goes back to something you said about the municipals. It really depends. I mean, are they going to take out bonds to buy equipment, that kind of thing? They're obviously going to look at, what kind of life do they have left. It's interesting. We've got to mention waste management here because there is a counterweight to this argument, and that is natural gas. It's been adopted by Waste Management, which is the big gorilla, if you will, in terms of waste. And 60% of their trucks are natural gas powered. They've moved to renewable natural gas. That's a pretty interesting story there because of the potential negative net zero carbon emissions there, and they have I think it's 107 facilities where they're making they're making the fuel for their trucks. So they haven't bought in big. They've got, I think they're testing a Peterbilt electric truck right now, but they haven't bought into that. They're committed and have been since 2018 to natural gas. So it's not an all electric story. I think adoption will be slow, but I think when it hits, it's going to hit big.
Awesome, Alan. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Go catch Truck Talk up this afternoon on FreightWaves.com. We'll catch up with you next week, Alan, and hopefully, if you're going to Las Vegas, don't fry too much in that hot heat.